Hi, I'm Vida Clocky with Vida's Collectibles, and I'd like to show you today how to paint a looking at you rose. I have found that so many of my students struggle with painting roses, and I tried to think of a simplified way to demonstrate how to paint this rose in our guild. And I kind of came up with this quick little easy way, and I'll show you on this. This is a looking at you rose. That means it's not turned to the side as the one next to it. Here's another little looking at you rose done in white. It's looking at you dead on. And we had really good luck in the guild with even the beginners were able to paint a rose, and they were really proud of themselves. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do a quick little video on how to paint a looking at you rose, and it makes you feel like you've really accomplished something because so many of us have struggled with roses. Now here's another looking at you rose. It's in the background somewhat, and that's in the Pinks and American Beauties. I'm going to paint one in white, and instead of using ashes of roses and all those colors that we used to use in the old days to paint white roses, I'm going to use three primary colors: yellow, pink, and blue. Before we start, I'm going to show you how I load my brush. First of all, this is my open China painting medium. It's my oil recipe, and it is available on my website, and if you want to check that out. This is Turpenoid Natural I use as a brush cleaner, and I rarely use it, only if I'm changing from a dark color and I want to go to a light color. I usually try to stay out of the brush cleaners. Now, when I load into the open painting medium, I usually run across my ceramic little tile here just to smooth out my brush stroke, but I always go to my cloth or paper towel to get rid of that excess oil before I go into my color. I use my oil mainly to condition my brush. So before I go into the paint, I pull that color and get a nice even stroke. Wiggle that brush, get a nice smooth even stroke before you continue on to lay in your color. Now I'm going to wipe the brush before I go into my next color. Pull. I'll lay a few of those colors on. Now I might just clean that brush here with just a little bit of oil and wipe it again on my towel before I go into my blue. Once I have those colors on, I'm going to wipe the color off the brush because I don't want to start softening now and have too much color on my brush. I just basically want to blend. And I always tell my students when we blend, 1, 2, and wipe. 1, 2, and wipe. Because if you don't wipe often, you're going to make mud. This is the reason why I'm bringing that brush back to that paper towel. And the more you play, the muddier your colors are going to get. So you can see how often I take and wipe that brush. And if it gets really dry and starts pulling, I'll go back into my medium slightly. Always wipe off the excess. Come in and soften those edges. You're going to see me come off to the side and load and wipe my brush often. So that's exactly what I'm doing when I'm over here pressing my brush out. You can sketch your outer edge with the Stabilo pencil, which fires out. I just do an interesting outer edge with 7s, backward 7s, till I get a general shape of how big I want my rose to be. You could also use a scroller with thinned paint to do your scrolling edge or to do your rose edge if you'd like. I happen to like a Stabilo. Okay, with a larger brush, I'm going to block in the center with yellow. This is going to be somewhat of a white rose that's reflecting all its colors that are around it. So 3 areas about. These are just general ideas on how to block this color in. You can do it any way you'd like, actually, but go into a little pink, a little more oil, about 3 areas. And my blue happens to be Cool Shadow, so we'll add 3 areas, about 3 areas of that. So we have some nice movement to those colors. Now we need to blend the colors slightly, so if you hold your brush at the end, you get a looser stroke. 1, 2, wipe. 1, 2, wipe. I tell my students to wipe after 1 or 2 strokes. They're not as apt to get mud. And knowing when to stop is a huge, huge thing. So I'd say that probably is blended well enough. I did add yellow red to my palette because I do want to pop a little bit of that in the center to warm that rose up a little bit. So I'll lay it in and soften that slightly. Now, when I go to cut this rose, I'm going to show you on this tile kind of a simplified way of seeing those petals. While this is resting, I'm going to go ahead and show you on here. I try to think of triangles. So in the center of the rose is a small triangle. None of those edges touch. Where they would touch, I add a little bit larger of a cut. And here it would be almost touching. Now where these 2 would touch, I'd add another cut, which would be a little bit longer. Where these 2, a little longer. These 2, a little longer. I'm looking at these 2 now, and I'm working my way out. So here's my last triangle. I would add a larger cut for that triangle, and if I were to continue these on, it would become a triangle. So that's what we're seeing as those petals are folding inside that rose, tighter and tighter and smaller. So that is what I'm going to cut now on this rose. I'm going to use a chisel end of my wipeout tool, and I'll start with the smaller triangle and add the next set. And where these 2 would meet, a little bit longer. Maybe I'll quit there now because I need to think about my outer edge. I'm going to cut an interesting little outer shape for now. With a conditioned oil brush, I'm going to grab that edge of that petal and I'm going to pull it and lift before I get too far into the flower. But I'm always pulling these petals to that center of attachment, which is the stem. That's what's behind that center there. Pull, 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 and I'm wiping my brush every time because I don't want to get this muddy. Grab that edge and just pull. So I softened that outer edge. Now I'll go to a medium size brush. I'm going to grab this edge and pull. Grab and pull. And maybe I want to give it a little interesting edge there. It's just a fun, easy way to do roses. I think we struggle so much and we think too hard. It takes the fun out of painting them. Now I might go to even a smaller brush here. I have a little yellow red on there. The closer I get in here to the center. Maybe just grab that edge. I need to keep my brush nice and square though, so that I can get into that center. I might add a couple more little cuts in there. Now if I saw that some of these openings were kind of large, I could just go in and whack a few extra little petals out of there if I wanted to. It's kind of up to you what you like. I think too much detail is not good either. Now I might take my brush and gently soften some of those strokes if there's any buildup. And I would find the lighter side of my flower. Maybe this is lighter here with the yellows. And I would take my silk, put it over my finger tightly, and tap out some nice strong highlight here on that highlight side of that flower so that all the cuts are real prominent. At this point now I might clean up that edge and I would fire it. You could add your foliage now if you'd like, but I want you to just concentrate on this quick, easy little rose. And your yellows can easily be your lost edges when you go to put in your leaves or your foliage. We'll fire this then, and then we'll go on to add a little more depth to the center and possibly some foliage to shape up that edges of that flower. This is the Looking at You rose after it's been fired. It's been sanded and cleaned and it's ready to have a second painting. What I'd like to do first is find my light direction. Remember I pounced out the highlight more on this side, so that would be the direction of my light. So I want to add a cool shadow color a little bit on the opposite side, on the shadow side, which would be cool shadow in this case. So I'll go into just a little bit of cool shadow and just do a light wash. Nothing too drastic. That may even be a little bit dark. Soften that a little bit. And I maybe got a little bit too dark of a value. So something I use a lot is the sponge. It's got to have a rounded bottom on it. And I use the sports wrap, or you could use silk. Cover that bottom that way, and this will lift just a little bit of that color off of there. There. Okay, cool colors recede and push back. Warm colors come forward. So you can see how that side of the rose looks like it might be more in shadow. I'm going to knock a little bit more highlight. I don't want it quite that dark. There we go. Now I'll go in with a smaller brush and warm up that center with yellow-red. And less is better with this too. You can get a little carried away. I'm trying to keep it a little darker towards the center. And then just lightly brush away. It really warms up the center of that flower. Just with a clean oil brush now, and probably soften that edge. Now I'm going to look at my little petal turnbacks. So with a clean oil brush, maybe I'll grab that edge and just bring it back towards me a little bit. Not too much. Very subtle. It would be a little darker down towards that center, but you see how quick and easy you can do a rose shape. And I think it's probably even a little easier if you do pink and American Beauty, stay in the same color pattern there, and I think it might be a little easier, but I do like the white rose with all the different colors that are reflecting on it. Now if I wanted this to be more of a yellow rose, I would go in with more yellow when I added my 3 colors in the very beginning. Less blue, maybe less pink. If you want more pink, then add more of that and less of the other colors. So just kind of play with it. It's just kind of a good way to practice up on doing roses. I'm going to set up the edge of this white rose now a little bit and show you what a difference it makes in the background. Now, if I'm going to use my 3 colors that I used the first fire, I want to start out with my lightest color first. So that would be yellow. Now I probably wouldn't drop it over here so much in the sunshine area. I might wash a little bit on over here. I'm thinking contrast here a little bit. Maybe that's all I would do. So I'm trying to set up this flower. Okay, let's go into pink. Try to get a nice soft load. I think this pink needs to be reground a little bit. I can about see where my edge is on my rose. And I can change that. That's no big deal. Little comma strokes. I try to drop the color closer to the flower and then walk it out somewhat. Okay, let's go into some cool shadow. Now this is a little bit darker value, so you're going to see more of the contrast there. Pop a little in here maybe. But you can see how the rose is taking shape. I would call these more atmospheric colors, colors that are in the background, far in the background. I'm going to soften those edges just a little bit. Now at this point I could carve into this and do some leaf carving. That's a whole nother session, but that makes for interesting backgrounds also. But I want to soften this edge here and get that about where I want it. And then I'm just going to drop a little bit of green in for an illusion of leaves and to shape that flower up a little more. You can see I'm wiping my brush often because I don't want to get mud. Alright, I'll go to a medium-sized brush now. I added antique green and a little bit of shadow green just to show you how to put in the illusion of leaves. So I'll take a full load of the medium green with maybe just a partial side load of the darkest green. Okay, if that's my highlight area, maybe I would just pop up an illusion of a leaf there. And I don't want them all to be the same size, so maybe I will make one of these a little bit bigger. Large, medium, small. Maybe I'll pop in a little something right here. It's just a suggestion, so less is better in that case. You can see what this green did now to shape up those edges. Maybe pop a little bit darker in there, but you can see where those comma strokes really make a huge difference as far as crisping up your edges. I'm just softening this right now. I'll continue to soften this edge just a little bit, bring it into nothingness on that edge. Now if I want to crisp up, clean up those edges, I could go in with my chisel end of the wipeout tool and maybe pull out some crisp edges. I like the lost and found edges, so you don't want to lose them completely. Just pull out a few, and it's okay if a little bit of that green comes up onto the flower because it is reflective. Okay, and this might be a little strong right there, so I might knock that down. This is really, really lost right here. I might pull in a little bit more blue here. Try to think more angular and not so rounded edges. Angular edges are so much more interesting. But if you have your brush trained to stay at a nice sharp point, you're going to get nice crisp edges. Alright, I might just soften the very edge and clean it up. And if I wanted to call this done, it could be done. If you're a light value painter, this is maybe all you have to do. And I do like this pastel look. If you wanted to go ahead and fire and darken with actual leaves, or even darken your background, you could, but sometimes I think less is better. So this is a quick, easy little way to do a rose and kind of get used to the feel and how the petals behave. So have fun doing it. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, and please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell for reminders on my new upcoming videos. Thanks again for watching.